Hello, everyone, and welcome to elearnChat, where talk, it's knowledge. Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm Rick Zanotti, and right next to me, not too far away, is Dawn Mahoney. Hey, Dawn, how are you?
Hi, I'm glad to be back on the show today, and I'm well. How about yourself?
I'm good. I figured you'll be on the road in about 25 minutes.
No, not till Sunday.
Wow, okay. I got
Sunday,
you.
back on Tuesday.
We were joking last week that they have, this is part of your employee motivation program,
Yeah.
work her till she drops. Yeah.
Yeah, I got Sunday travel this week for 2 days, doing facilitation out, and then I'm home for a week and a half, so it's good.
Well, that is good.
Yeah.
Well, we have a guest today.
Yes, I'm so excited, and I'm so glad we were able to reschedule because Adam was supposed to be with us a few weeks ago, and based on some kind of serious things that were happening on his work world, he rescheduled till today, and I'm home and happy to be here. My little story about Adam is when I was doing Thursday night Learn Chats, I was always so thrilled when Adam would join the Learn Chat stream. It just it made it just that much more interesting for me. So welcome to the show, Adam Weisblatt.
Hi, Adam.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
We're
We're
good.
glad you're here. Look at your cool pictures in your background.
Yeah, might as well get some art in the background. That's my kind of
Exactly,
side
my
thing.
messy living room in the back of mine. So welcome to the show. It actually worked out. We were chatting one day in our Skype group, and I was about to type asking you if you wanted to be on the show, and you typed, how do you get on elearnChat? So here you are. Here you are.
So you paid the
Yeah.
fee and you're here. No, I'm just joking.
Bought the ticket,
Right,
as it were, to ride.
Well, it's great because I've been watching the show for years and really always enjoyed it. So I was like, oh, wow, this is great. I get to be right here with you.
I'm
Great.
so glad. And you suggested talking about the role of learning technologists. And I think when you said that to me yesterday when we were typing, I thought that is just an awesome topic because I don't think even people in our industry understand that emerging role and how vital it is to organizations. So tell us your scoop.
Yeah, well, it's it's interesting. This is I'm sure focused on e-learning designers and developers and other people like that. But there's such a symbiotic relationship between the role that I do as a learning technologist and the e-learning people. Now, I've also gotten my hands into the mix and done designing myself, so I know where people are coming from. But it's a role that has evolved over quite a few years. What people have found is that the technology teams, the IT group, they don't really have time to really get into the nitty-gritty of how the technology is used. And learning is complicated business. So this role has come up because there's so much learning out there, and are so many people we need to get that learning out to that the only way to keep up, the only way to scale up is to use technology. The problem is you can't just throw technology at a problem. You've got to really think about how people use it and how it serves the needs of a business. So I've had this role in a couple of companies, and I've written about it on my blog. And
You're showing your blog right now, as a matter of fact.
Great, yeah. It's my blog's called Creating Understanding, and it's a lot about these different issues. It's looking at the big picture of all the tools that go into how a learning organization functions, and it's always been very fascinating to me. I'll never get bored.
Well, and you made such a good point when you said you can't just throw technology at it. We were having a sidebar conversation last night and today about, I was asking people who cares, but I was asking people what screen resolution or screen size they're using to build their e-learning modules anymore, just kind of doing a random scan to see and I only got a couple of responses, but then Leva was weighing in this morning on there's a lot more to think about than being able to put it in HTML5 and put it on an iPhone, for instance. So throwing technology at it speaks my language, which is sometimes training isn't the solution either.
Right, and sometimes technology isn't the solution. People go
Right.
running around looking for tools, for the newest, coolest tools, not realizing they already have good tools right at their fingertips. They just haven't explored all the things you can do with it.
Right.
And you know, we're really underutilizing cattle prods like we should. And I'm just not sure.
Rick, you haven't brought the cattle prod up in weeks.
It's been a while,
What?
yes.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've been whittling my sticks and doing the smoke signals as well.
It reminds me of a Big Bang Theory episode I was watching the other night where Sheldon had gotten the Whip Crack app on his phone and was using it. Cattle prods, Whip Crack, yeah, that's what we do.
Right, right. But when you're talking about the technology and where this is going is you have to go back to the business part of it. The business has handed us money, right? We each have a budget for the projects we're working on. Where did that money come from? Somebody who has control of that money thinks that if they give you the money and you create some e-learning content, that will make the people in the organization that much more valuable to the organization, and the organization that much more valuable to the stakeholders. And so in order to capitalize on that, we have to make sure that we create engaging content, because really people are already learning with technology. They've got Wikipedia and YouTube. They don't really need us, but
Right.
we need to get messages that the business needs to get to them, and to do that we need to be engaging. And then what we also have to do is we need to track what people have done, get the content to the right people, and make sure that they got it, and get that data back to the people who gave us the money, so that they can see that they've gotten something for what they paid.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
it's
kind of a
interesting.
left-hand, right-hand situation, engaging on one hand and, realizing what we need to do and pointing it out to the stakeholders on the other end, which is not necessarily in the same conversation, the same thing.
Well, also what's interesting is that I would probably venture to say that 50 to 80%, maybe even higher, of e-learning is probably a waste of money today. The companies aren't really trying to train people. A lot of it's about indemnification. And unfortunately, that doesn't really create very good training more often than not. And now there are some companies that do great training. And then there's a lot that just indemnify. Let's stay out of legal issues, and kind of the whole effect or purpose of the learning is lost. Do you find that in your travels and in the work you're doing to be true?
Oh, yeah, all the time. You know, it's about risk mitigation.
Mhm.
Another company I worked at was a major pharmaceutical, and basically it was just to keep the FDA off your back. What
Yeah.
the FDA wanted is to say, are people trained enough so that they will do things that are safe for the employees and for the patients? And as long as you can say, oh yeah, this PowerPoint presentation that says here's how we cover our butts is going to make everyone feel safe, then everyone says, okay, that's good enough for us. And that's not learning. And then the other problem is what we track, right? We want to show the stakeholders, look, you invested this money and people actually learned. But we don't have CAT scan machines that we're putting people's heads in to see if they really learned. We're using an LMS, and the LMS is tracking, did people show up? Now, you have to show up in order to learn, but if you show up doesn't mean you actually did learn, but at least it's something. I just think we can do better.
Well, and one of the questions in the chat pod is, when you're talking about measurement, are you referring to Kirkpatrick's levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, or ROI, Jack Phillips, or are you talking about butts and seats, so to speak? Can I say that?
Right.
Here?
Well,
I just did.
yeah, that's okay. The problem I have with Kirkpatrick, and God bless him, it's a great thing to strive for, but in order to measure a business impact, in order to measure the right behaviors that people want. You have to decide what you want that impact to be. You have to decide what you want people's behaviors to be. And in my experience, no one's really has the guts to come out and say those things. They say, well, we want your behavior to be that you look at our training, and we'll measure that. Or we want your behavior to be that you can answer a multiple choice quiz or game it. But we're not saying this is what we want people to be able to do differently after they've seen our training.
Well, and people can't answer that question. I ask that question all the time. They can't answer it. And I'm like, well, then how do you know training's the answer? How do you know a learning module is the answer?
Well, no, but ultimately, one of the issues is we don't tie it back to any kind of performance improvements.
Right.
So you can teach people till you're blue in the face or till they're actually out of oxygen in their brains, and it doesn't mean they've actually learned anything or can apply that to their jobs. So that's something that, again, is lacking. The LMSs usually are nothing more than launch tools. Well, that's an expensive launch tool, and we're not doing a lot of analytics on the training or tying it back to HR scorecards or anything else to say, hey, this person actually took the training and learned from it.
Little known fact about most LMSs, and we just bought a large one. I work for a huge organization with a huge LMS provider, and we still have this situation that we had with our little previous LMS provider, which is we launched the course in a separate window, and if you close that window, it shows that you completed the course.
Well, no, that's a problem with the way it was coded.
Which is, I know. But you know what? Our learners know about how to do that.
You completed launching it. Unfortunately, that's kind of
the
that's
what they're
there.
doing. And,
We don't
and if you're looking for a launch tool, there's this great new technology that just came out. It's called the internet, and it lets you launch content all the time.
Ooh.
People are launching everything. The problem is that with if you don't need to track data, if you just need people to get to content, you don't need an LMS. You need the internet. If you want to get people into classrooms, you can just use, Evite. But the reason for an LMS is that we need to show, it's our performance tool. We need to show that we got the content out there to the right people, which is great, but that's just the beginning. Did they learn? Did they change? Like you said, is there a performance improvement? And I think that one of the disconnects is that learning organizations see the LMS as a way to control the learners, and you can't control the learners. The learners are doing the learning. We're not learning for them. You can't learn people. And although I think my father tried to learn me a thing or two, but so you can't really control learning. It's going to happen whatever you do. What you're trying to do is get the messages and the ideas out to people who need it from the business, and you need to make them a partner. They're the one that's doing the learning. So, a lot of talk about personal learning networks, personal learning infrastructures. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, and I haven't heard a lot or read a lot on Tin Can lately, or that methodology. But I'm hoping that's the answer in the future. It's starting now. The XPI. I don't say it right, but anyway.
Yeah, right. The XAPI, or the Experience API, formerly known as Tin Can.
Right, API. But I'm hoping that is the methodology, and that more organizations, especially large ones, I guess you and I both work for really large organizations where we have to tick the box and check the box now and then. But to your point of a few minutes ago, those business relationships and the trust relationships that are built, and being able to speak the language of the business about outcomes is so vital to the learning function as well. And I don't know that we always do a good job of that, those of us learning geeks and tech geeks that manage around learning. Tell us more about how you use your role. And you used the word engaging earlier, so I'm intrigued to hear what's engaging for you at your organization, and what's your buzz?
Well, we're speaking of Tin Can, we're definitely interested in getting involved in that. I think it's early days with Tin Can because not of any lacking on willingness or capability, but I think it's some inertia in some of the scratching in your heads and thinking, well, what do we really want to do with this? But the promise I see in Tin Can is, if you think about SCORM is this kind of little controlled environment. You've got to start at the LMS, and you are launched into a course, and the communication between the course and the LMS is very controlled. You are put into this little capsule, you take your training, and you get to that point where you hit submit at the end of the test, and then all the information comes back, and everybody is safe. And there've been no radiation leaks or anything like that. But with Tin Can, what I like about it is that you can discover content without the LMS, and there could be a Tin Can piece of code on that content that could go back and tell about your experience without having to control what you do.
Yeah, it shouldn't control. I think the biggest head scratching, besides getting readiness for the technology, is what are we going to track? We can track lots of things, but what's relevant and who's deciding what's relevant? And at least that's the conversations I've been involved in. Is that true in your world as well?
Yeah, and what are you going to do with the data?
Right. Who's going to read the data? How are you going to parse the data out? Is it valid data? Is it relevant data? Or is it just a shiny object? And to quote Cami Bean, a clicky, bling, bling. So, that's on us and people in your role, I think, to really be able to articulate that vision.
Sure. If I had $1 for every time someone said, I'd like to have a dashboard or a portal or anything that's the end result. And I always say, well, how do you want to get there? What business problem do you want to solve? What don't you have today that you think you're going to get tomorrow that you're willing to invest time and effort into to happen? Or do you want me to just make a whiz-bang dashboard that doesn't really do anything, just looks good?
Now, Adam, what do you see as or how would you rate the state of technology today?
Well, the technology itself, I think, is really great. There's always very cool stuff happening. I think the problem is that we only look at learning technology. We say, and it's funny because I call myself a learning technologist, but really, you don't have to get stuck with just learning technology. There's great technology out there for all sorts of uses. We tend to kind of put ourselves in a box when we say, well, it's got to be a learning authoring tool instead of a content authoring tool. It's got to be a learning management system instead of a content management system. And I think that we could look outside it. But what I think is really not quite there yet is people being able to think through how they're going to use the technology. How does it fit into the flow of work? How does it fit into the flow of what a learner is doing? Let's not just tell everyone, oh, you've got to stop and watch our training and then, move on. How can we get our training to be part of the workflow, part of what people do in their everyday?
There's a question. I'm trying to get clarification on the chat pod, but I'll just read it as it is educational technologist, instructional designer as contractor, architect. So I think the question is, are we trying to squish too much into that, or is it all the same thing?
Yeah, I get kind of bogged down in some of these words because there's times when there's a small shop and it's the instructional designer who says, hey, I just found this new cool technology, let's use it. And sometimes there's a big organization where you have a whole team of people running the LMS, but nobody on that team is talking to the e-learning people. You need to get those connections. I'm not sure if that was the question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to get clarification. Be sure that I'm respectful of the question because I'm glad people are in the chat pod. I'm back on engaging. What's engaging to you? What do you dialogue with your team about as far as what's engaging and what can you sell in your organization? I would have a hard time with using the word game and gamification, a word I don't even like yet. But
well, you have the three kind of buzzwords that, like you said before, the check boxes, right? You've got social, mobile, and gamification. And, when you people are asking you to check things off a box. The anarchist in me is saying, no, that's those are buzzwords, and I've got to move on and find something else. But those three items keep coming back because I think people are really interested in some problems that they have the potential to solve. So social has that, everyone says, well, if we just, connect learning to social media, magically the social media mojo will make everybody learn. And that's not true, of course. You're going to create things that people don't use because it doesn't fit into that flow. But you don't have to throw it all away. The reason people are interested in it is because it's hard to work alone. It's hard to learn alone. It's hard to sit there at that e-learning module by yourself and have no interaction with anyone else. We learn through our interactions with other people. And just because we're online doesn't mean we can't keep doing it that way. But you need to have people interact in a way that fits into the way they want to interact, not something we force down on them. So mobile is the same thing. People just say, well, we'll just take our e-learning and put it on mobile and we'll check off the mobile box because everyone has mobile and it's great. Cool.
Deadly.
But the thing is that mobile is part of our lives. It's how the learners are expecting to consume content, but they're not expecting to consume it. Like, no one's going to watch a TV show on their phone because that's not what they expect. They pick screens and devices for what they want. So you can't just throw an e-learning at them and think that that's going to fit. What people use their phones for is information. So that's why I think performance support and that drill down, only the information you need when you need it is something that fits with that mobile paradigm.
And also, it's interesting, more and more people have phones, multiple phones sometimes, definitely multiple tablets. So you're dealing with, I'm one of those. I have a Kindle Fire HD.
And my iPad's over here.
Yeah, you've got your iPad. I've got an iPad. I've got a Kindle Fire. I've got a Samsung 12.2-inch tablet. A Nexus 7. Do I need all of them? No, but I tend to have all of them, partly because we do research and testing on them, and the other part is I like having all of them. I read on one, I watch movies on a different one, I listen to music. They're all different, and they're all good at certain things, and I haven't found one that's perfect at any of them. So it's...
Well, Rick, I've always suspected, but I'm not so sure, that you're really into technology. It's just a hunch I've got.
It's a myth. It's a total myth.
If you log into Ustream, you can watch Rick talking about his new setup in his home studio.
That's true. Yeah.
He moved one of the Wirecasters back.
Yeah, we have 3 studios technically, and this isn't even what we do for money. This is just what we do. We have this one, which is our TriCaster studio. Then we've got, my office is actually more of a studio than an office.
He's going down the rabbit hole. He'll never come back.
So I've got Wirecast there, and I've got the same duplicate at home. So yeah, I like tech. I've been involved with tech since my first programming class in 1972. It's been a long time.
But you have to look at the choices people make when they're into tech. It's and how they use it. So, for instance, I'm looking at your screen, and you've got this great green screen setup where your hand is going over our faces.
In our heads,
Oh, I must have been waving. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sure. And I was thinking to myself, especially when you really set up this kind of 3D thing you got in that background, I was thinking, oh, what's he doing with that? Is he just doing it because he likes the tech, or is he trying to solve a particular problem? And I'm going to speak for you now, but so you tell me what the real truth is. Okay. But that, you've been doing this for a lot of years, and there's a lot of web shows where people are sitting on Skype, and you've got the boxes, and it just goes from face to face in someone's living room, and you've got to keep getting people engaged and interested and feeling like they're part of something, that they're involved. And by having that just little 3D space and the little overlap of your space with our boxes makes people feel that they're kind of in the space a little more involved with what's going on. Is that a fair assumption?
That's part of it. It's trying to create a sense of show and a sense of that you're not just in a TV. Like, my hand may come up, and sometimes I do just
hit me in the face.
I just whack her every so often. It just keeps her in line. But
well, you can hide my face if you need.
And that's the Italian part coming out where my hands start flailing, so I have to watch that.
And now back to learning.
Yeah. Well, we've
'Cause
learned a
if he
lot
starts on
doing this.
microphones, we'll be here for hours.
Oh, microphones! Don't get me on mic.
Yeah, we just can't be doing that.
Yeah.
So, Adam,
but it is about learning.
It is about
how we
learning.
consume and get
I
involved.
learn a lot
Well,
about these
actually,
microphones
you know,
every week.
you talk about mics and you talk about video. It is amazing how many people don't know how to record audio for e-learning. And what's out there is just, you know, all you hear is lots of popping, and it just sounds awful. You know, and I tell people, audio is easier than video, but it's much more important to get it right. Your video can be crappy, nobody cares, but if your audio is bad, they'll tune you out in a second.
Here's my gift from Rick. He didn't like my Mac microphone.
No. And you still probably have it too far from you.
Hello.
I know. I hope I'm good with my little doohickey over here.
Actually, it sounds pretty good.
I tried to stay as wired as possible, and because I saw that Shannon had trouble with her connection, I was like, oh my God, I better not do that.
Oh, speaking of, my power went down right before Rick was calling me. I got my computer up just in time, so the monsters are around. So I want to talk about future. What are you thinking about in the next iteration of the projects you're doing, or what's something's new and interesting to you that you want to engage more in, either ad hoc to work or in your workspace? Tell me true.
Well, a few things. I've always been interested in MOOCs, and I know that they, again, were this big buzzword that kind of went crazy for a little while, and it's simmering down a bit.
It is.
But I always look at these kind of, you know, these crazy explosions of things going on, and kind of look around for the little tools that you can use. I participated in some of the early MOOCs. From George Siemens, where you know, it was more about all of the people on the line creating the content and sharing it. And I thought, well, you know, it's tough to do that over months and months. What if you could do sort of a micro MOOC, just a few days? You know, start off with a virtual, you know, session to kick it off, and then have people contribute to online information, and then meet again to kind of go over what they contributed, but in a very small scale. I'm really into doing things on very small scales because it makes it so much more doable, and you get that constant feedback.
Well, and that's the problem with MOOCs as I see them, even though that is emerging. You know, I signed up for a few of them. 12 weeks is just a lot of time. So I can take a college course for that and get credit, I guess, is the way I'm thinking of. So it's small slices of time. And would you be building MOOCs for your organization, or are you interested in just building them on, let's just say, learning technology?
Well, both. I'd like to, you know, I'm always working on things, you know, outside of work to just keep connected to the community, which, you know, is very important to me, and also to be able to try out new ideas that I could bring back to work. But even in work, I think that there's some problems that could be solved by getting cohorts of people in to work on small pieces at a time. I also saw Bob Mosher talk about performance support, which I've heard for a while, and it was always interesting to me, but I never could get my head around it. And I don't have the information on me, but his idea of the upside down pyramid, where people start with just the information they need, and they have the power to drill down to much more of the esoteric information that supports that information. I think that there's a lot you could do with technology to give people that drill down capability.
I'm not sure if we lost Dawn.
Oh, maybe.
Lose her. I think she may have she may have had another power outage or something.
We jinxed ourselves by
we may have. She had to bring it up.
Connections.
We'll have to talk to her again. Don't bring things like that up.
Right.
Anyway, well, you know what? We were at the end of our time anyway, which is good timing, I guess. She has a habit of taking off right at the right moment.
Right. Get out while you can.
Yeah. Now, do you work for Nielsen, the ratings company?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay. So we do expect good ratings out of this show. That's really important.
Yeah, definitely. Nielsen is known for ratings, but we actually capture data about what people buy, what they watch, how they consume information around the world.
Right. That's the part that people don't realize about Nielsen, that it's a whole data gathering operation aside from the TV ratings and things like that.
Right.
So, well, you guys must see some great trends. I'd love to have you back on to talk about trends that you see, not only in the industry, but just in general, people-wise, because frankly, everything relates somehow to learning, one way or another.
Well, definitely. Learning is what we do as human beings.
So that would be actually really interesting. Well, Adam, I'm glad you could come on, and look forward to seeing you. I'll see you at you're going to be at DevLearn, so I'll definitely see you at DevLearn. I'm doing one talk at DevLearn, and I think I'm hosting one or two of the Breakfast Buzz sessions that they're doing. So those will be fun. 7:15 in the morning sessions.
Those are always fun. Yeah, I have one session I'm doing on big bad data and how to clean up the mess.
Big bad data. Yeah, that's good.
Thanks so much for having me. This is great.
On the contrary, thank you much for coming on, and I look forward to seeing you next month at DevLearn. And what is your session that you're actually talking about?
Big bad data is about people are interested in big data, but we still have to clean up the mess we have with our current data, and I give people tools on how to rethink that problem.
Sounds good. Sounds good. What day is that going to be?
On Friday morning.
Friday morning.
At 8:30.
Okay, great. That sounds great. So we look forward to seeing you at the show. And if you're going to the show, for all the people watching right now in the chat room or watching the recording, please attend his session. These sessions are always great, and you'll get to learn something and interact with people. And if you're watching the live stream, thanks for being there. And please hit the follow button. I think it's on top and bottom. And follow us. What it'll do is it'll give you an email every week with what shows are coming up, so you know what guests and what shows and what times. And if you're watching the recording, again, please subscribe. Leave us your feedback. We like hearing from you. Adam, again, a pleasure, and we will see you soon.
Great. Thank you, Rick.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.